Welcome. This short presentation focuses on one of the most pervasive prejudices in healthcare and counseling: ageism. It is the prejudice we are most likely to inflict, most likely to internalize, and least likely to notice ourselves doing. The World Health Organization calls ageism the most socially accepted form of prejudice in the world. Over the next 20 minutes, we will name it, see how it operates, examine cross-cultural and intersectional variations, and end with concrete practices for the counselor in the room. Listen for the moments where you feel a flinch of recognition. 4 parts in 20 minutes. We start by defining ageism and naming its forms. Then we look at where it lives: in elderspeak, in healthcare, in the workplace, in the media we consume every day. Then the cultural and cross-cultural lens. Then we close with internalized ageism and what counselors actually do about it. The threads we keep pulling are the same ones we have discussed across this course. Cross-cultural. Research, indigenous ways of knowing, neurodivergent older adults, and intersectionality with race, gender, and queerness. Part 1. What is ageism? I want to start with a working definition because the term gets used loosely. We will move through the formal definition, the 3 components researchers use to sort it, and the difference between implicit and explicit forms. Robert Butler, the geriatrician who founded the National Institute on Aging, coined the term ageism in 1969. He defined it as systematic stereotyping and discrimination against people because they are old. The World Health Organization broadened the definition in its 2021 Global Report on Ageism. Stereotypes, the cognitive piece, are how we think. Prejudice, the affective piece, is how we feel. Discrimination, the behavioral piece, is how we act. The reason we sort it this way matters clinically. A counselor can hold no conscious prejudice and still discriminate behaviorally through their hiring practices, speech, and listening. Ageism lives in all 3 layers, and the layers are not always in agreement. Explicit ageism is what people say and do consciously. You look great for your age. Mandatory retirement at 65. Birthday cards that joke about decline. The dismissive "okay boomer" line, easier to name, and often the tip of the iceberg. Implicit ageism is the part that is harder to catch because it operates outside conscious awareness. Slowing your speech with an older client. Skipping the suicide screening. Assuming a 75-year-old does not date. Calling an older adult sweetie or hon. Becca Levy and Mazarin Banaji's classic 2002 work showed that implicit ageism is held even by older adults themselves. The first step in counseling practice is catching ourselves. Most ageism in the room is implicit, and noticing it is the precondition for not enacting it. Part 2. Where ageism lives. We are going to look at 4 places where it shows up most often. Elderspeak, healthcare, the workplace, and the media we swim in every day. These are the rivers that carry ageism into the counseling room. Elderspeak is the term researchers use for a speech pattern adults use with older adults. Simplified vocabulary, slowed pace, exaggerated intonation, diminutives like sweetie and honey. Plural pronouns. Are we ready for our walk? The intent is usually warmth. The effect is condescension. Christine Williams' research at the University of Kansas has documented for nearly 2 decades that elderspeak in care settings increases resistance to care, depression, and even reduced functional capacity. The right column gives you the alternative. Use the older adult's preferred name. Speak to them, not over them. Adjust pace only when invited or clearly indicated. Notice your tone. Match an adult, not a child. The metaphor I use with students. If you would not say it to your supervisor, do not say it to your 79-year-old. Client. The cultural script says aging equals losing your mind. The data says otherwise. Roughly 3% of U.S. adults 65 to 74 have dementia. The number rises with age. About 22% of adults are 85 and older. Dementia is a disease. It is not the default of aging. The myth on the right is the script. The research column is the reality. Crystallized intelligence, vocabulary, semantic knowledge, and expert judgment continue to grow into the 70s. Processing speed slows. Working memory narrows. Wisdom, narrative skill, and emotion regulation often peak in late life. Most cognitive complaints in older adults are not dementia. They are stress, sleep, hearing loss, depression, or medication. Take the complaints seriously and do not assume dementia. Most have treatable roots. 4 numbers worth knowing. By 2050, 1 in 6 humans will be over 65. The United States has 57 million adults 65 and older today, and that is projected to grow to 78 million by 2040. Life expectancy in the United States has grown by roughly 20 years over the past century, although that gain has stalled and even reversed for some groups. And the number that should sit hardest with us. The WHO Global Report on Ageism found that half of the world's population holds ageist attitudes. The implications for our field are direct. More of your clients will be older adults. Counselor education programs do not yet match this shift. Most CACREP accredited programs require 0 coursework specifically on aging. And if half the world holds ageist attitudes, half of us do too. That is the part that demands deliberate self-work. Healthcare is where ageism becomes part of the treatment plan. Older adults are less likely to be offered cancer treatment, depression screening, pain management, and hearing rehabilitation than younger adults with the same conditions. Symptoms are attributed solely to aging, which delays diagnosis and treatment of treatable conditions. COVID made this visible at scale. Several countries wrote age cutoffs into triage policies. The vignette is composite but typical. Mr. Wilson, at 78, tells his doctor he is exhausted, sad, and not sleeping. The physician says, "Well, you are 78. What did you expect?" He leaves without a referral. 3 months later, he is hospitalized for a suicide attempt. Suicide rates in the United States are highest in adults 75. And older, especially older men. Healthcare ageism delays exactly the screening that would catch the risk. Workplace and media ageism are the infrastructure that shapes what we believe. AARP found that 64% of workers 45 and older have seen or experienced age discrimination on the job. David Newmark's audit study of fake resumes found that older candidates receive about half as many callbacks as younger candidates for the same role. Women experience age discrimination roughly a decade earlier than men, one of the clearest cases of intersectional ageism. Media ageism shapes the assumptions we bring to the workplace. Adults 65 and older account for 17% of the U.S. population and roughly 2% of speaking film roles. Anti-aging products are a $63 billion industry built on the premise that aging is a defect to be corrected. Part 3. The Cultural and Cross-Cultural Lens. Ageism is not a universal human inevitability. It is a cultural construction, and different cultures construct it very differently. This part is the one I most want you to carry into the counseling room. 5 framings, side by side. Mainstream U.S. frames aging as private decline. Older adults disappear from public life. Indigenous nations, with all the diversity those nations carry, generally frame elders as knowledge keepers. Aging confers status, ceremony, and intergenerational responsibility. East Asian Confucian traditions frame filial piety as a sacred family duty, although modernization is shifting this. West African Akan and Yoruba traditions hold older adults as intermediaries between the living and the ancestors. Latin American familismo treats multi-generational households as the structural norm and respect for elders as a value, not a sentiment. The point is not that other cultures have it figured out. Every culture has its own ageism risks. The point is that the mainstream U.S. story of aging as decline is one cultural framing among many. It is not nature. It is a choice. And as counselors, we can choose differently in the room. Ageism is never experienced alone. It compounds with every other identity in the room. Gendered ageism. Susan Sontag named the double standard of aging in 1972. Women experience age discrimination earlier and more sharply, and aging in women is treated as a loss of social value. Racialized ageism. Arlene Geronimus describes weathering, where a lifetime of structural racism accelerates biological aging in Black, Latina, and Indigenous adults. The aging body is partly the body the world has been wearing down over the past 60 years. Queer plus age. LGBTQ plus elders carry the weight of cohort-specific discrimination. Many came of age before Stonewall. Aging in long-term care often forces a return to the closet. Kimberly Crenshaw's intersectionality framework reminds us that compounding is the rule, not the exception. Where ableism and ageism intersect, neurodivergent older adults sit. Autistic and ADHD older adults often grew up before their neurotype had a name. Many were misdiagnosed or pathologized for decades. Late-life identification is rising. Many adults receive a first autism or ADHD diagnosis in their 50s, 60s, or 70s, often after a child or grandchild is identified. Ageism compounds the underdiagnosis. Cognitive differences in older adults are too often attributed to dementia, rather than to a lifelong neurotype that has finally been named. What the diagnosis can offer late in life is a coherent narrative for a lifelong sense of being different, self-compassion in place of self-blame, and permission to design the rest of life around how the brain actually works. As one client put it explained my whole life. I am grieving the years I spent thinking something was wrong with me. That grief is its own clinical work. Part 4. Internalized ageism and what counselors do about it. The research on this topic is among the most striking findings in social psychology. The story we tell ourselves about aging shapes how long we live. This is the slide I most want you to carry. Becca Levy at Yale has spent 2 decades documenting one of the most striking findings in social psychology. Older adults with positive self-perceptions of aging live an average of 7.5 years longer than those with negative self-perceptions, controlling for health, gender, and socioeconomic status. 7.5 years. The mechanisms are physiological. Cardiovascular stress elevates with exposure to negative age stereotypes. Memory performance drops when older adults are primed with negative aging language. Recovery from illness slows. Conversely, positive age beliefs reduce dementia risk by about 50% in adults carrying the APOE4 risk allele. Levy's 2022 book is called Breaking the Age Code, and the line is hers. The age beliefs we absorb early in life become the body we inhabit late in life. We are inheriting the cultural story, and we can revise it. 5 commitments for the counselor who wants to practice anti-ageism. First, audit your own age beliefs. Take Harvard's implicit association test for age. Notice your own scripts about aging before you sit with an older client. Second, watch your language. No sweetie, no honey, no plural pronouns, no good job for adult tasks. Use the client's preferred name. Third, screen older adults the way you screen younger adults. For depression, suicide, sexuality, substance use, and intimate partner violence. Do not skip the questions. Fourth, center the cultural and indigenous frame. Ask how the client's culture frames the elder. Make space for ceremony, language, and family practice. Fifth, disrupt ageism in your settings. Birthday cards, hiring practices, intake paperwork, training, naming it interrupts it. Those 5 together form the spine of an anti-ageist counseling practice. 4 questions to carry with you. First, what was your earliest message about aging? Who delivered it? And was it spoken or shown? Second, who is the older adult in your life whose late life choices most challenge the cultural script of decline? Third, when you imagine yourself at 80, What age beliefs are you already practicing on yourself? Fourth, what is one ageist phrase you use without thinking, and what would you say instead? Sit with these questions. Bring your answers into your reflective journal, into your supervision, into the rooms you will sit in for the next 40 years of your career. I want to close with Ashton Applewhite, whose manifesto against ageism is the most accessible introduction to anti-ageist practice that exists. Aging is living. The longer we live, the more we age. The trick is to live without practicing the prejudice on ourselves. The counselor's commitment, at the bottom of the slide, is short on purpose. Catch yourself. Name it. Choose differently in the next sentence. The room you create for the older adult is the room you are practicing for your own old age. Thank you for the work you have done this semester. I am proud of who you are becoming as counselors. References for the presentation in APA 7th edition format, slide 1 of 2. I will not read these aloud. The Applewhite book and the Levy book are particularly accessible if you want to start your own anti-ageist. Reading. References, slide 2 of 2. A diversity citation statement accompanies this list. As individuals with multiple invisible marginalized identities, we are committed to ensuring that the works cited include authors from a wide range of backgrounds, including ability, race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, religion, class, language, and communication. We recognize that these authors may carry such identities themselves. That brings the Ageism presentation to a close. Thank you, and I look forward to seeing you soon.